Some guests joining us from the city of Twin Falls this morning. I just want to mention, too, we're at 45. We've been up to 46, on our way, according to some forecasts, into the mid 50s today. It's 8:43. Bill Colley with you on Top Story today, and I thank you for joining us on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Nathan Murray is the Director of Economic Development in the city of Twin Falls, and of course, Josh Palmer works as the spokesman for the city. That means he gets called at all hours of the night. Uh, Benito calls him at 3:30 a.m. and says, "Hey, how you doing?" But that's part of the job, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Reminds you of your days when you were a newspaper reporter.
It does, you get all types of calls. So
And Nathan's here. Well, this is not really a bombshell, but for some people, you can't. No matter what you do in a city,
Mhm.
if you change looks of something, some people go, "Wow, that's great." Other people say, "What did you do that for?" And I don't know if there's anybody in the middle, but there's some changes coming with some of the downtown improvement work going on.
Yeah, especially with something like trees that I know people have a lot of an affinity for. The kind of the unofficial kickoff to our main avenue project, which is a complete redesign from Fairfield to Jerome for 5 blocks, is the tree removal that's going to take place President's Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So February 17th through the 20th, which is the Monday, you'll have all those trees, about 160-ish along that section, be removed to about 3 foot. They'll be cut to a 3 foot stump, and then the landscaper will be grinding those up and using it for playgrounds and mulch and so forth. But that's kind of how we're going to get started on this project.
Down there along Main Avenue, where you have a lot of those old pine trees,
Mhm.
and it's very. I've photographed those before, just the streetscape, and sent that to friends around the country, and they think we're living in some sort of mountain resort town because of that. Uh, but obviously, there's some care issues too that come
Yeah.
along when you have a lot of these old trees along any street.
So if you're walking down there now, it's apparent that the sidewalk is a mess. Like there's what we call, accessibility issues for persons with disability, or if you're in a walker, it's tough. And we do have lots of falls, and it's because of the trees have kind of reached that age of maturity where they've kind of towards the end of their lifetime, pushing up the sidewalk. And these particular trees, though they're pretty and they give a lot of shade, they aren't the best trees for an urban environment.
And because there's a lot of pitch and stuff too,
Yeah,
and
they drop, they drop needles. They're bigger root systems, and they don't. They also cover, I mean, for business owners, I can't believe we haven't heard more complaints about this, but the canopy they block visibility to sign and so forth. So it's kind of hard for that type of tree to be there, and so we're going to plant better ones.
when I was a kid growing up, the main street of my hometown had a lot of maple and elms.
Mhm.
The elms died off with Dutch elm disease, and then someone made a decision to cut the maple trees down. And people were upset about it at first because that they thought the big shade trees were gone. What they replaced them with were these trees that had a smaller, I think, impact, which looked small in the beginning, but then grew to be nice and leafy and provided a lot of shade. But they didn't, and they grew fast. They
Mhm.
didn't necessarily heave the sidewalks anywhere near to the degree the others had. So, will these be replaced eventually by anything like that?
Yeah, so we have 4 different species that are typical of downtowns. One of them is a type of maple. I don't remember the specific um, type of name.
Second city business coming here
Yeah.
with syrup.
And there's a few other varieties, but they're going to be built into this kind of it's about a 5 foot deep hole that's about 4 foot wide with a grate and so forth, and that root bulb can just sit in there a little better. It's got a drip system, so lower maintenance in terms of watering, and uh, it's gonna grow pretty quickly. It's about 2-inch caliper. So it's gonna look small when you plant it, but within a few years, I don't think you'll notice it, and it's gonna grow taller quicker, and then start to canopy out a little bit.
Wanted to mention if you've got a comment or question for Nathan Murray while he's in the studio with us, the City of Twin Falls Economic Development Director, please feel free to give us a telephone call. The number is 736-0300, 736-0300. We're at 47. It's at 847, so got a match there. And of course, you can always email me at bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. That's bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. Is there an expectation that there'd be any controversy about this? I mean, obviously, there are some people out there who think no trees should be cut down, I suppose, but you are replacing them.
No, we are. And Josh, I think Josh said you met with the property owner yesterday. What'd she say? I like that. She said you shouldn't expect that there's no problems. Or
Yeah, it's she had a really good outlook on it. She said, well, really just expect the worst, hope for the best, but plan for the worst." And so it's what we've heard from folks so far. I mean, there's obviously, like Nate mentioned earlier, people that are tied to these trees. We fully understand that, but what we're hearing from certainly the project team, which includes the downtown business owners and several members of the community, is they want to get this done. They want that downtown area to be accessible, and to do that, we really have to remove those trees. But I think so far, I've been maybe a little surprised there hasn't been a little more controversy about it. But maybe that'll surface certainly when it becomes more visible.
It's just losing the look of it again. We talked a little bit about how postcardish it looks, but in the long run, it's the cost of maintenance and all these other things you brought up. It
Mhm.
seems to me most people would say, "All right, we understand where you're coming from with this."
Yeah, so we need to replace the sidewalks regardless, right? And if we do that now, a lot of those trees would die just by us having to cut different root systems and so forth as
Hmm.
we replace trees. And so while we're replacing sidewalks and street furniture, well, let's replace the trees. It's time.
There are obviously some people, I'm sure, then in the business community excited about it.
Mhm.
That probably are thinking, as you brought up earlier, somebody can see my sign.
Yeah. So this is what we're hoping, just give it a real fresh look. And we're inviting people to kind of come down and experience and check it out as it's happening. I think a lot of people will be really surprised how it looks after these trees are cut down versus what it is now. And it might be kind of striking to even see parts of buildings that you didn't recognize were, well, either one ugly or very beautiful. So because you can't really tell. So come see what that looks like.
We have a caller with us, and caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX. Go ahead.
Bill, following your suggestion to the economic developer, with regard to the $4 million that the city has appropriated, I hope has not appropriated, is made a decision to spend on sidewalk down to the canyon. Isn't that $4 million better spent on the things that you're talking about? Isn't that $4 million better spent on maintaining the streets in Twin Falls? What about the pay to the city employees? What about the pay to the police department, the fire department, which many, I understand, are using as a training ground for those people to find higher paying jobs in other communities of the state of Idaho? That's all I had to say.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the caller was referring originally to the Canyon Springs grade discussion, and
Right.
yeah, we have heard a lot of we've heard both sides related to that we have a lot of walkers who want that sidewalk in there, down to the grade, and we've heard the other side, such as the caller. Well, could that 4 million be spent elsewhere? The only thing I would preface this with is that's still in the discussion phase. There was, I think, some misperception that was adopted. We still haven't got the full engineering specs back, as well as those firm estimates. And even if they'll continue down that path of having that sidewalk down the grade, and in terms of compensation for police, which I think was our larger issue, and Travis talked about that on your radio show earlier. That's those funds. We're able to pull those funds from other kind of line item areas. With regards to the money that's going into the sidewalks and things for downtown, that's actually from a separate. It's through tax increment financing, which is Nate can probably explain a little bit better than I can, but that's really just it has to be spent on infrastructure in that downtown area.
Hmm. Yeah, so part of our urban renewal district is monies that we've collected off these property taxes have to be respent in that area within a certain time frame. So this is a project that we've been planning for a few years that we couldn't spend money on it elsewhere. And also the Urban Renewal Agency, though connected, is actually a separate entity from the city. So it's a different organization altogether. So it'd be illegal for us to spend that money on some of those other city projects.
His input is good, and I just am reminded though. I was talking to Councilwoman Hawkins at our Halloween event last fall, and we spent about 40 minutes talking about some city issues. Um, she was waiting for her kids while they were in the long line, or her grandkids. But the fact of the matter is, and she shared this, and I think some of the other folks too on council, they need the input.
Yeah.
And you'll have a public hearing, and sometimes nobody shows up, and that's the time is to come in because they're looking for that public input, and they don't often get it.
I really appreciate that. I mean, that caller was knowledgeable about a lot of the issues that we're
Hmm.
discussing right now at the city level, and that's the first step. But this input, certainly, we take this back. We take it to the committee that's looking to address the Canyon Springs grade issue, and it really does help. But you're right. If we can have people come and provide that input, the last thing we want to do is make a decision that maybe isn't in accordance with what the community wants, or have a committee that does that. So all that input really is helpful. I think that Canyon Springs grade, although I'm getting a little off topic, that's going to be an interesting, and I think it's going to be a fairly lengthy discussion before they get to a point for any solution. So.
Our guests are Nathan Murray and Josh Palmer. They're joining us from the city of Twin Falls. It's 8:53 on KLIX. We have another caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning. I didn't get in on the beginning of the discussion, but what kind of trees are they, and how are the trees going to be disposed? Are they just going to be put through a chipper and used, or are they going to be allowed to be sold for firewood, or anybody who wants to buy the wood? Thank you.
So I apologize. I don't know the 4 different varieties that are going in, and I wish I had that. But you can go to twinfallsmainavenue.com and probably get some more of that information and see different plans and so
You
forth.
haven't been running an arboretum all your life, right?
No, but I should. My wife's a horticulturalist. Anyway, the question was these trees. So we actually are inviting those interested who would like a tree to use for some sort of artistic endeavor to contact us. We'd be happy to arrange with our contractor to pick that up, to haul it away if you think it is something that you could put to use. We are trying to avoid this free for all for firewood. Um, we got a pretty good, actually, the bid to cut these trees down is about half of what we budgeted and anticipated, largely because the landscaper that's doing it is going to be able to mulch and then use for their product later on. We're allowing them to do that. Uh, but as a result, we have spoken to them and said, these, if there is someone who needs maybe a section of tree, would like to, turn something into a bowl, maybe some sort of woodworker, please contact us. We reached out to the Arts Council and some of the campuses here around town if they know anybody to contact us.
Yeah, and the remainder of what's left from those trees, like Nate mentioned earlier, it'll be ground up, and we'll be using it in our park system. So the trees we have they're Parkway maples, tulip trees, a Newport plum, and a Chanticleer pear. But we're want to remind folks the plum and the pear trees, they're not actually fruiting trees. They drop kind of a small kernel that's easy to clean up. So we're not going to be getting into the orchard business.
Now we got about a minute and a half left, and I want to thank the callers. We've got a question of my own because my holy day, March 17th, is coming up, and will it impact the festivities downtown on during the parade?
No, in fact, that was one thing that our board was clear about, that no construction could start until after the 17th of March.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You know what? Well, on one side of the family, a good Irishman does here is when the parade takes place, he stops into O'Duncan's and gets himself a calzone because that's what real Irish people would eat. Um, and I can actually watch the parade while I sit and eat. Um,
This whole project, what amazes me, I've been seeing it from a kind of an outside perspective, but how closely synchronized it is with community events and also with businesses with their peak business time. I think the URA deserves some kudos for working so closely with that downtown area, those business owners in the community to make sure that it didn't have too big of a negative impact on just the festivities that we have here in Twin Falls.
and they don't really start until summer, a lot of them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're trying to complete I guess would be the northwest half between Shoshone and Fairfield first, to take care of some of those events that happen on the end of Maine in June and July. So
Hmm.
we'll be starting construction on those in April. So April, May timeframe for Shoshone for that first block, and the next block's probably kind of May, June.
And
So
Western Days itself then won't be really heavily impacted.
No, in fact, that's so that's Shoshone Strip, excuse me, Shoshone Street. it'll be able to pass through there. We'll have those areas available and open. Yeah, that's part of the timing as well to not impact that. So hopefully, if people do have concerns or questions, give us a call or stop by. See the construction and stop by City Hall and say hello.
Come into a meeting and have some input.
Yeah.
I want to thank both Nathan and Josh for dropping by today. Hope to see them again soon. And we've got another hour of the program ahead. But first, Fox News Radio, of course, with news. Bill Colley on Top Story as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. It's 47.